Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around fantasy Premier League. My name's Serge.
And my name is James.
And my name is Clayton.
And we are here. It's T-minus 0 days. Deadline has come in 6:30 p.m. UK time, BST, British summertime. And yeah, we're ready to go. This show is our final in air quotes, final drafts, boys. We all set, we all locked and loaded, or who is going to make changes between now and the deadline?
All of us.
Yeah, well, I think I am likely to make changes between now and the deadline, but I think I'm down to 2 players as the most that I will change now.
Same, to be fair.
I'm down to whatever the managers tell me, specifically Mikel Arteta, Arne Slot, and Eddie Howe, and then down to whatever weird nonsense might get leaked on socials at around about 6:20 this evening. Otherwise, I haven't changed it since Sunday afternoon, so it might not change now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So James is still rolling with the 4 Spurs. First and foremost, the listeners want to know, have you hit the bench boost button, James?
Yeah, the thin blue line is there.
Lovely jubbly.
And if you are bench boosting this week, please make sure the thin blue line is there. I will repeat what I say to FPL every year. Can we go back to the dark green background, please?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, good. Go on then. Hit us with the 15 that are going to score 100 points this week, James.
It was 102 last year. If I get that again, I'll be over the moon, to be honest.
Yeah, mate, that'll be a great start.
Interestingly, polling patrons this morning on captaincy this week, just briefly, about 80% look like they're going Isak.
Wow.
It's big. And I was speaking to Harry Daniels last night, FPL Harry, and he was saying he was surprised that even there was a lot of people who were going Isak and Salah were still going to go Isak. So it's beginning to feel like Isak is probably going to be the most captain this week. We'll see. I think closer it gets to the deadline, those with Mo are going to... Oh, it's Mo though, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, for me. So I'll go to 11 and then I'll go to subs. So David Raya in goal.
And just to be clear for the listeners, you're not shithousing your bench, right? You put your 4
I've put, in
bench
my opinion,
players who you would bench if it was a normal game week.
You may disagree with the 4 that are on the bench, but in my opinion, yes, these are the weakest 4 on the bench because I'd rather measure it based on my target at 16 for a bench boost.
100%.
And that's what I want them 4 players to get to. And it probably only needs one really good one out of the 4. And we'll probably do it. So David Raya in goal. Back 3 of Pedro Porro, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and William Saliba. Midfield 4 of Jacob Murphy, Dejan Kulusevski, Diogo Jota, and Heung-min Son. Up front, Dominic Solanke, Kai Havertz, Alexander Isak. That's with Isak captain and probably Heung-min Son vice, I think. I don't think that probably doesn't matter. It should do, shouldn't it? Probably Sonny vice with what I've got. On the bench boost is Andre Onana, Brian Bumo, Lewis Hall, and Virgil van Dijk.
Strong. I like it.
Feedback welcomed, but you won't change my opinion.
I had a feeling you were going to say that, so I was like, why bother?
As if I'm going to listen to one of you 2 clowns and go, oh shit, I didn't realise that.
So your 4 Spurs is Porro, Kulu, Sonny, and Dominic Solanke.
Yeah, I think it's worth clarifying. From what I've got there, the one real player that obviously is who is he going to start is Kulusevski. That's clear. And he's the most likely player to depart. At the moment, I'm inclined to stick with him. The one thing that will really change it for me, if none of the team news does, is a confirmation that Garnacho starts tonight. That would be the one that tempts you. Just a straight swap, same price. Kulusevski to Garnacho. But I'd sort of overnight come to the conclusion, do you know what? Let's stick with the 4 Tottenham. Sod it. I think Kulusevski, if you'd asked me, I'd say he's about 60% to start. He's going to be in my predicted Tottenham lineup. I'm going to have Johnson as the one missing out. I think Kulusevski's had a great pre-season, and I think he'll deem it that you can use Johnson's pace later in the game against tired legs, you would suspect. It is possible that those 2 players both start and James Maddison misses out. It's also possible that those 2 players and James Maddison all start, but I think that's a little less likely now that we know Anja said Bissouma won't play. Don't think you'll want to leave Rodrigo Bentancur isolated in that position. So it'll probably be Bentancur, Sarr, I think Maddison, and probably Kulusevski to the right. I wouldn't be surprised if by the way, Kulusevski finishes. If he starts, is every chance he'll play the 90 minutes and move into Maddison's position later. And Maddison goes off, say, when Johnson comes on. So I like that as a punt. I like Brian Bumo as a punt, as kind of essentially my fifth attacker this week, despite the price. Because I know it's one that, because Brentford's fixtures in 2-4-5 are Liverpool, City, Tottenham away, people are just completely avoiding it. And I completely understand that. For me, for clarity, for those who haven't heard, I'm obviously wildcarding straight out of this. So these are just picks. It's a 15-player free hit, essentially. I've also gone through permutations on every single player on if they are ruled out or if they are doubtful. And I'll give you a list of other players that are under consideration for me under the basis that something goes wrong on the team news today. Those players are Alisson, Pope, Vicario, Ramsdale, Kelleher, Gabriel, Dalot, Bradley, Shimikas, Van der Ven, Quansah, Fernandez, Odegaard, Bowen, Gordon, Diaz, Kudos, Johnson, Trossard, Martinelli, and Ivan Toney. And I know the permutation on each basis of exactly what I'm going to go and do.
What's the obviously, I do think it's good to have a punt like Mbumo that's completely different on your free hit / bench boost, because that's essentially what it is. Onana as the goalkeeper, you think Fulham are not going to score today?
No, I
There's
do.
a lot of good goalkeeper options out there. So
No, I do. It's a case to say I'm going to back Nottingham Forest for a clean sheet this week and not Manchester United. But I also know that if United do keep that clean sheet, he could be more than a 6-pointer. So that's why he's going in.
Okay.
Whereas I could say, oh, okay, Forest, I fancy Forest for a clean sheet. But yeah, if I go back to say bookmakers odds and stuff, United are going to be the more likely. So I'm going with that. I think it's okay to have a different opinion, still go, that's still the right choice. And that is the right choice for me, I think. So sure, I could put Sells in and then Boomer up to Jared Bowen would probably be the one under that circumstance. But of course, once I've done that, then it's Kulusevski to Garnacho as well, right?
You've
got
to
remember,
make
if
another
anything,
choice. Yeah,
anything goes, this is why I've looked at all the permutations, because if anything does go wrong for me today, unless it is specifically on Kulusevski, I've got to make 2 changes, right?
Yeah.
The worst one for me is Porro, which I'm not going to. Ange did his press conference yesterday, so it's so unlikely that I'd hear anything that's gone wrong. But if something, Porro's done himself in training, I need to make 5 changes.
Jesus. Is there anyone on that list of permutations that you wish you could fit in if you had like a 16th option?
Garnacho, if I knew would start.
Yeah.
There's certain ones at the moment that I'm kind of gone against, like Gordon. But then say if it came out today, Jacob Murphy's out, then it's like Gordon comes back to my attention because I think, okay, well, he's going to play Gordon and Barnes under that example. So, and obviously people like Bradley and Shimikas, it's like, if Trent is ruled out today, right, well, Connor Bradley's going in and we're changing the team because I'm going to have 2 million to play with. Then at that point, it's like Kulusevski to Fernandez, okay? Or to Odegaard, rework something else. So I've got plans in. I feel like I'm pretty covered. What could go wrong? Other than the 15 players doing naff all.
Well, the one thing is
Tottenham.
Spurs lose 1-0. That's the thing that can go wrong the most is Spurs lose 1-0. Yeah, but look, I think there's the thing is the fixtures for the teams that you've targeted there: Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, Spurs, as who you're heavy with. My minus 56 team that we run with the patrons is heavily based around those 4 teams, and those are the 4 teams that are most likely to do well this. So I think it's a quite an easy week to decide what teams you want to target. So I'm completely with what you're doing, and what could go wrong?
Yeah, and I like the logic behind the Boomo 1 week punt as well. Like you said, people aren't going to go for him. So if he goes off, which he's capable, that could be a really nice differential.
Yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, it's not even, I mean, like at the same price, I prefer Eze, to tell you the truth. I think Brentford have got problems defensively, but it's exactly what I've been saying all week. If City, like, I can't be doing that on the bench boost, right? If Tony doesn't start, he's on pens. Although I think at the moment Tony probably does start. But I do think because Brentford have got problems defensively, I think they'll go for it. I expect goals. I think that'll be a really good game on Sunday. I expect goals in it actually. So I like that as a differential punt that could go off. So yeah, it's weird. I mean, I'll put myself in a position where I'm genuinely saying Boomer is my weakest attacker. And I've got Virgil van Dijk sitting last on the bench, but it's the coming straight out of this that obviously enables that. And I'll go and attack Chelsea, City, Villa, keep my Liverpool and stuff like that. I can attack Southampton, Fulham next week. That's the plan.
Cool. We spoke on the Diff show yesterday, James. I'd made one from my earlier kind of draft in the week. I'd made one big move, and that was to sell Mo Salah and go to Diogo Jota. I just think Jota can match him for points, and there's such a big saving on funds. What that allowed me to do was turn Greaves from Ipswich, who was my second 4.0 defender alongside Barco, into Trent. But then I ended up in a scenario with 3 5.5 midfielders. That was Minte, Murphy, and Smith Rowe. And that didn't quite sit right longer term. It was okay for 1 week or 2 weeks. I'm happy to play Murphy, and I think he'll do well. But then I didn't want the three of them. And the more I looked at my team and who I had set up, because I have Hall, Porro, Gvardiol, Barco, and then now it was Trent at the time. Trent was my sacrifice, and I had money in the bank. So I have got rid of Trent, and I have moved him now temporarily to Munoz, which allowed me to get rid of Minte and go to Bukayo Saka, who I think is a solid long-term pick. My squad, as it is right now, is Leno and Fabianski as my two goalkeepers. I have Pedro Porro, Gvardiol, Munoz, Lewis Hall, and Barco as a back five. My midfield is now Saka, Jota, Jacob Murphy, Emil Smith-Rowe, Christopher Nkunku. And up top, I've got the big man himself, Haaland, Solanke, Isak. Bench keeper I mentioned is Fabianski. So I've got two 5.5s in there in Smith-Rowe and Murphy. They're my cheapest midfielders. Then then Nkunku, then Jota, then Saka. Front line speaks for itself. What I need to figure out, which I haven't quite had a chance to do because I've only made the transfer from Trent to Munoz today, is between Smith-Rowe, Munoz, Barco, who am I playing, and even Lewis Hall in that, who am I playing each week? Because if there's one of those that I don't think I'm going to massively need, I'll drop them down to the cheapest possible option. I'll drop one of those 5.5s down to a 4.5 and bank the money, because I now have nothing in the bank, and I did have some in the bank before. I've seen a few people coming off Barco, but I didn't know if that was just being spooked by Estupinan being back in training, or is there other news, guys, that I haven't heard on?
They're obviously doing business in the window, as many of you have seen.
Is it Kadigoglu or something?
A few attacking players are looking at, obviously being heavily linked with someone that potentially can cover in the full-back area as well. And yes, I think most people thought Estupinan wouldn't be back in training for a couple more weeks. He is. There's certainly no chance, basically, of Estupinan playing this weekend. So you're absolutely fine for this week. And you're probably fine for a little while as well. But it's with Barco, it's looking at 4 and 5. And I think his ownership, because so many of us have said, look, this is the 4.0 really to go for. Obviously, if he's out the team and there is someone else doing well, the inevitability of what happens. So, but I still think that's got better upside than any of the Southampton, Ipswich or Leicester's.
Yeah.
And that would be better. Okay, yeah, he might lose a little bit of value. But if he does end up dropping to 3.9 or 3.8, he might even find that the interest comes back around for him again. Is a possibility. So I don't think that's not top of the agenda if he was to drop in price. Oh my God, I've got to get rid. You're probably going to be focused on other things, I should imagine. So he would still be the 4.0 for me, but yeah, that probably has spooked a few people a little bit.
I really want to captain Jota this week.
You could obviously, instead of Munoz and Barco, you could do like 2 4.5s, right? But that's taking some power away. I was just looking at, obviously, Fulham have got a great run of fixtures. So you said like looking between Smith-Rowe, Munoz, and Barco and Hall. I mean, I think you'll probably end up from next week onwards putting Smith-Rowe in the team instead of Murphy.
Yep.
And then that's potentially another way where you'll find the money. He's downgrading
Yeah.
Murphy, right?
Murphy is there very much as a 1 week. If I get what I want out of him this week, I don't have any intention of needing him longer term, but he's fine to have that, right? If he's the one that I've got to play because Newcastle got a right run, it's not going to cause me any particular problems. So yeah, I feel fairly comfortable with this. I mean, Munoz has been jettisoned in as I had 5 million for a defender, and he's the first name that came to mind as a 5 million defender. So I'll have a think about whether I want to keep Munoz in there or
He's the best 5 in my opinion.
Have you given any thought to when you want a wild card?
No, I want to. Well, yes, as late as possible. I like the idea around kind of game week 16, which is something that we talked about on the chip strategy pod earlier in the week. I'd like to think around then, ideally.
God, you've turned into me. I think I've turned into you. I've turned into you.
Don't forget deadline's at 7 o'clock today, James. Yeah.
No.
That was a joke, listeners.
Yeah, listeners will know.
It's 6:30 UK.
Yeah, I think I look at it. I'm fairly comfortable. I do want to just look at the next 3 or 4 weeks and see what I'm going to do. Don't have the money for Solanke to Watkins.
That's the template front three now. Quite clearly since the Solanke move. I mean, what is he now, 25% owned or something, Solanke? Like that's jumped
up. He was
at
26.7 yesterday. So he's 28.6 now.
Wow, yeah. So it was 10% when the transfer was confirmed. So you can see the investment's obviously gone. There's no guarantee he's going to be better at Tottenham than Bournemouth, by the way, because at Bournemouth he was a clear talisman. He might not necessarily be that at Tottenham, but yeah, great pick. I'm 90 to 95% sure Solanke would start. And by the way, if he doesn't, is Kulusevski in the 9 position, right? How to get the Watkins, I think, is something you will want to do most likely, and you need to maybe figure that out. Like a Murphy down to 4.5, and then you're playing Smith Rowe regularly. He isn't going to do it unless you cut Isak. So then you're going into hit territory. So is it you have Vardiol for 1 and 2, and then drop that down? Maybe something will emerge that you like. I think the other glaring one probably on here that is to be aware of is, are you sure that you want Vardiol over an Arsenal player?
Why is that?
Why is that? Well, one, Arsenal got a better fixture this week, and currently you've got Vardiol on your bench, Suj, and if you get the Arsenal player, you're clearly playing that this week, and you've got a stronger game week 1 team.
Yeah, I'll take that on board, but then Vardiol next week is clearly the better choice than the Arsenal player
for when he's a sub, because
when it comes back around, right?
Pep would never rotate in a fixture like that, mate.
Pep is our best friend.
There's no way.
I take on board the Watkins point. I think that if Solanke does well in the first 2 and Watkins doesn't, people that own Solanke are going to find it very hard emotionally to move from a player that's doing well to a player that's not. It's going to be like, okay, is that the question we always sometimes? Is that my biggest problem? Well, Spurs have got tougher fixtures and you might lose them, but I still back you to score in any given game. And I've got the striker, not the defender there. So I actually think that when it gets to it, a lot fewer people are actually going to do that Solanke to Watkins move. If Solanke's done well and Watkins hasn't, it's going to become a lot harder. And that's actually
if Isak has done well, importantly, because they are close in price.
Yeah, exactly that. So as much as it's an idea in my mind, I'm not very hardcore wedded to that idea of needing to get to Watkins in game week 3. So go with the flow. There are players that I can drop down, right? Saka is a lot of money. I don't necessarily know if I want to drop him down, but I could find money there. I think your point on the Arsenal defenders is fair, but for next week, having Vardiol, it looks super good. So I don't mind either Barco away at Everton or Munoz away at Brentford this week. I think both have got fair potential. So
interesting is I've just checked Watkins' ownership, because I did think, well, hang on, Watkins' ownership would still be more than Solanke's, won't it? And
it
again,
is by 10%.
At the time of the transfer, Watkins and Isak were both sort of 50%-ish. Watkins has dipped below 40% now. I wouldn't be surprised if before kickoff, Solanke's got more ownership than Watkins.
It's a 10% swing, 5 each way. Yeah, it could
that's
happen.
All it needs.
And Isak up to 60%. I'd put the armband on Jota this week, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go Isak. I'm going to just play the percentages and play the ownership. I just don't think it's worth it to swing against. There are weeks too,
Thanks
and
so
there are
much,
weeks not
Suj,
to.
for
And
sending
this
us
is
an
not
image
it.
that's got Jota as captain on it.
Yeah, I didn't. You didn't tell me though before we started recording, and I sent you the image that you'd done
I
a
expect
poll
you
in
to
Slack
send
on the
me what the
patrons, did
team
you?
is.
You didn't tell me that the Patreon poll captaincy was on Isak for 80%.
Oh, did you think it was on Jota, you nutter?
No, but I thought it might be spread a little bit more because you got Mo Salah in there. Has got a decent fixture. People that are going with Haaland, it's always hard to not put the armband on him, regardless of who he's playing. 80% for Isak is very high. Arsenal got a home fixture where you've got the likes of Saka that are captainable. When you've got so many captainable options, for it to be so heavily on an 8 million forward, and I know it's Isak, is quite surprising for me, to be honest with you. I thought it would be a bigger spread.
That I mean, when you compare the options, now there is a caveat to this.
Well, this is my point, right? It's like if it was a spread, I would go Jota because I'd swing against. Because what's the worst that can happen? When it's not like that, it's not wise to swing against.
There is a caveat to this in the sense that there might be a little bit of info because they are Planet FPL patrons, and I've been sitting here since the day the fixtures come out and when I'm captaining this at Gameweek 1 before I even knew what the bloody prices were. Because I've said if he was 11 million, I'd start with him.
Yeah, but
So,
take the 80% aside, 60% ownership is mental enough as well right now. Like I didn't expect it to be that much higher than Haaland.
It's going to be well over 100 EO is how it's looking now, isn't it?
Well, this is it, right? So in Gameweek 1, I'm not swinging against. It's not the time I want to be doing anything too crazy. So I'll stick with Isak and I'll vice captain Jota. I think I'll switch the two around.
Okay. You think you change any of that? Please change your captain then.
Munoz, I think, is one to consider. I'm going to run a simulation just for the next 4 or 5 weeks, which I've not done on FPL.team, which I recommend people use. And if you want free access to FPL.team, why not sign up to our Patreon? Hint, hint, plug, plug. We'll do that at the end. Clayton, come on, give us your 15. You're the reigning three of us champion, highest rank over the last couple of years. So your team has got to be amazing, surely.
Well, let's hope so. Let's see what you think. So
shit.
In goal, I've got Dean Henderson. I'm not in love with the 4.5 million keepers. I said on a couple of pods, I had David Raya this whole time, but as it got closer, I only had David Raya in there as a way into the Arsenal defence, and that 1 million extra has just come in to help me get other players that I wanted. So Dean Henderson in goal. Fabianski's my backup keeper on the bench. Defence, I've got Pedro Porro, Gabriel and Hall starting this week, and Barco and Ezri Konsa on the bench. In midfield, you'll be no surprises. My boy Gibbs White has made it in. Diogo Jota, Christopher Nkunku, Bukayo Saka, and on the bench, Morgan Rogers. And then up top, I've got Erling Haaland, Dominic Solanke, and Captain Isak. And my main decision, I feel fairly settled on this team now. And I'm sure James is going to throw a few curveballs at me. But the biggest decision for me now is Dominic Solanke versus Trent, and it's a case of do I downgrade Solanke to like a João Pedro and then upgrade a Konsa to a Trent, or do I stick with this that I've got right now? And I think it's just my strategy in terms of wildcard is similar to usage. I want to keep it as long as I can, so I've gone for a combination of picks that I think will be long term, like as Late Riser says, the glue guys, right? Like your Sakas, my Gibbs White in there. I joke about him, but he's 90 minutes. They've got a good opening run. I think he's on pens. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So people like that. And yeah, I've left 0.5 in the bank. It's probably worth saying. So I'm eyeing up game week 3, Isak to Watkins. Obviously, take what you've said in mind of if Isak goes off in the first 2, am I emotionally actually going to be able to do that move? But I think so. I play this game very emotionless now. So yeah, that's the 15 I've settled on. Hit me with it.
Okay. I quite like it. I'm glad that you said you got the 0.5 in the bank. Did you, Suj? Were you money spent, by the way? A minute.
All spent now. I'm sadly all spent.
Okay, fine. I assumed it was. Because I was thinking when he was talking, Clayton, I was thinking you're not putting Trent in here unless you make 3 transfers. Because if you downgrade Solanke, you're going João Pedro, I would imagine, or Adam Armstrong. You're not going lower than 5.5 anyway.
No, correct.
So then, because you'd have to go up really from Konsa or Hall to Trent, because you're not going to want to take Porro out.
So I've not done the permutations quite like you, but I have got a second draft that is literally just Solanke to Pedro, Konsa to Trent, and that's the only changes. But I think I prefer this one.
Yeah.
Solanke
Okay.
for the first two, to be honest.
I think the big question the listeners and reviewers would want to know is why Gabriel over Saliba?
I think he's a stronger threat from set pieces, and I'm not as concerned about his minutes as everyone else seems to be.
Do you think Calafiori will be left back then when he
Yep.
gets into the team?
I do indeed.
About Timber.
Okay.
I think I've said this maybe on a Patreon pod. Timber is recovering from an ACL. He was nursing a foot injury over the last couple of weeks in terms of managing weight load. I think he'll be eased in substitute appearances when Europe starts. Especially Arsenal's opening run. There's a lot of tough fixtures in there, right? I don't think Arteta's going to be experimenting too much in that period. I think it will be a lot of the tried and tested 11, especially that closed out the season last year. And I think your Calafioris, Timbers will come in through substitutes, like 60-30 splits. And yeah, that's where I more see it, to be honest. I'm not concerned about Gabriel for the foreseeable. I can see it potentially like 1 or 2 appearances over the 38 where Calafiori or Tomiyasu Timber comes in, but I'm talking like second half of the season. I'm not concerned until then.
Okay, now that's fine. Your boy Gibbs White.
Yes, sir. Talk me out of him.
Just for those who've never heard you before,
Okay.
why is he your boy Gibbs White?
Well, I think it was
Because you held him for about 15 weeks last year.
And I got one
nothing.
return. Yeah. So
Why is he your boy?
I turned myself into a bit of a meme. So last year I had triple Arsenal defense in the only period where Arsenal didn't keep clean sheets. And I had Gibbs White for a run of, I think it was 12, 13 game weeks.
You
And
said he still beat us, Such.
Yeah, I know. This is where I'm just like, what is going on?
And I didn't get anything, and then I sold him the week before a double digit haul. So but I really like him as an option, especially I'm someone I try to cover price points and stuff, right? So even my midfield, like I've got a Saka in there. Do I think he's the optimal option for the first 6 to 8? Probably not, but I think he's someone that will be consistent. There'll be 5 to 7 points in, week out for that run. And then I've got that 10 million price point where I can pivot if I need to. And same with Nkunku's the 6.5 I really like, and Gibbs White's in there more for the first 3, and then I think something will really emerge from that 5.5 bracket that we've spoken about before. So I like the idea of having a Gibbs White there. First 3, I'm confident in those fixtures, and then I can pivot off and downgrade potentially.
Yeah, I think you summed it up quite well about looking at 3, and it's a theme we've been discussing for weeks, Such, is keeping in mind the idea that you're probably going to want to go to Ollie Watkins for Leicester, Everton, Wolves, Ipswich in a row. And you've said that you'd think you struggle with that. I think the consequence of that, and other people might find this, is the instinctiveness of wanting to look at a different attacking player. Now, you've got Morgan Rogers there, and that might be your solution. But if Morgan Rogers isn't playing for Villa and you don't want to get to or can't get to Watkins, I think you're going to be drawn to look at Liam Bailey.
Yeah, I can see that.
My big concern for you on that is I think what you've done is quite cute and clever as you've thought ahead. That's like why you've got Conser on the bench. You're like, oh, that's great little cover for Villa's run. That might be problematic for you, though, in the sense that if you end up going game week 3, I want Bailey, you've cut yourself out of Watkins. And I don't think you want to do that, especially when we've said like game week 5, because City and Arsenal playing each other, if you're not on the Salah route, which you're not, you might end up looking at someone like Watkins for captaincy.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, that's a good point. My concerns with this team is Rogers. So Rogers, Barco, Consa. I'm not really looking to use them. They're like 12 men that I'll rotate in and out should I need them. But Consa I'm not sold on him as the 4.5. I reckon there's better options, but it's just like you said, cover for a potentially good run should I need a 12 man. But Rogers is the one where I think there's a real concern for me that after a few weeks he loses his place, and that's the one where, yeah, if I can't get to Watkins and then I end up with a Bailey and I'm blocked off. So Rogers is one that I'm very open to changing. Consa too, I'm just not entirely sure who or where. And I don't want to make Rogers a 5.5. I don't want to make Consa a 5 million because I want that 0.5 for the Isaac to Watkins on paper.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's fine. I'm surprised you haven't paid that for Smith Rowe, though.
What's that? Oh, because of being an Arsenal fan, or?
Well, he's popular, and yes,
he is, but yeah, I don't know. I like my midfield, and I mean, who would I play Smith Rowe instead of out of the midfield 4 and front 3? I'm not sure. I would, to be honest.
Okay. The one thing to note is, as we discussed on Wednesday's pod, like you could use Concert to cover Poro's tougher fixtures as well. That might be a temptation for you, but I think when you land there, you probably still find the urge to pick Poro over Hall.
Yeah, I think
So I don't think that necessarily works. I think just have a kind of a sense check on Concert and the reasons why he's in. If you're happy with that, fine. Just
well, I'm not
you're
really
thinking ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Concer's the one that doesn't fill me with excitement, but I get it's a game week 3 onwards pick, so he's sitting there and he's the most reliable because we do know that at left back they've got a number of options. At right back they might mix it up a little bit. Concer's the one from the Villa defence that you know is going to play, so I don't mind you going with Concer really as just like a safe option there. It's not fun. Like you want a little bit of a wing back or something at 4.5 that might give you something, but I don't. It's there for what it is, right?
I'm not intending.
The truth is,
I've got a solution for you, Clayton. If I just jump in, have about 6 or 8 pints,
and then go where?
No, if you keep saying Concert enough, you might find you land on Quanser.
Hey.
I mean, that does cover the difficult Tottenham games not too badly as well. Game week 3, not so much, but.
So for what it's worth, I'm not actually intending to start Concert, even in that good run. It's the idea of having him as the 12th man, and if someone doesn't play, I like that as a reliable sub.
Yeah, makes sense. I think that between your team and my team, the sticky players, as you'd call them, the core players, so Haaland, Slanky, Isak, Jota and Kunku, Saka, Poro, Hall, like we've got 10 players that are the same if you chuck in Fabianski as well, and then it's the fringe players around that we have disagreed on. Like you've gone with Gibbs White, I've got Smith Rowe in there. You've gone with Concert, I've got Munoz in there. So it's those, and I just don't think those are the players that are going to define or make or break our FPL seasons necessarily. So with those players, play it your way. Do what you think. Do what you fancy. If you've got a feeling on Gibbs White, go for it. But the core sticky players that you've gone with are very similar to mine. So I can't really add anything other than like there's no one there that I think is bad. I just think that Concer's a bit boring. But you know, it's there for a reason. He's safe. Boring and safe isn't bad. It's just
Jota's
I like
this. Oh, go on.
I was just going to say I like that you both put Saka in. From a structure perspective. I think it's
well, you know, one of the biggest sways for me on that was captaincy. One of the biggest things of like going with him over anybody else was actually, you know, with the pens and the captaincy option with Saka. I think in all my fantasy career, I've not owned Saka for a lot, to be honest with you. I don't have an emotional attachment to him where I've had him for long periods, and he hasn't done it well. Possibly he hasn't, like, you know, I don't have this. I've got more emotional attachment to Kulusevski than I have to Saka because I've owned him and he's done well for me in periods where I've owned him. It's stupid, right? And you build these kind of associations with players that do well for you that you want to gravitate back towards. But when I look at it cold light of day, Saka's got to be the option for me there versus Son or Foden or whoever else.
I think especially where we're looking to hold our wild cards for as long as we can, he's the guy that you just keep him in, week out. There probably won't be too many huge hauls in there, but it'll be a steady stream of points with him. So I think for our strategies, makes sense. Jota's the interesting one, though. Like, I think he could be a headache very quickly, to be honest, with the minutes threat and stuff. But
you see, this is it. I've got an emotional attachment of positivity to Jota. So I'm like, this guy's going to do well for me. This guy's going to do well for me. But, you know, every season's different. Every season is different. Is that it, boys? Are we done? Teams revealed, pretty much there. Obviously, guys, it's going to be a very noisy day on social media and so on and so on. So by all means, jump in the comments and share your thoughts and opinions, whether it's on YouTube or what have you. But there's going to be team reveals and thoughts, question marks flying around everywhere. So yeah, some might get replied to, some won't. And we'll leave it at that. James, what's the schedule for today? What are you doing for the listeners? Deadline streaming?
Yeah, it will be. Public service announcement though first. Thanks for everyone who supported the show during pre-season. I wish you all the very, very best of luck. Do play it your way genuinely. Team news stream for advanced and intermediate plus tier patrons at 3:30 UK time today. Deadline stream for everybody on the Planet FPL YouTube channel at 6:30 p.m. UK time today. Who should I captain? You just watch the drafts video, kids. And also, one very important point, the 3 members of the Planet FPL team do reserve the right to change their team at any point during the course of this day. No one has said that their team is locked. That even includes me.
Okie dokie. If you want that team news stream, why not head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL and sign up and join the community. We've had loads of new members this week and we're grateful for each and every one. Yes, you get additional content like the team news stream each and every week, as well as additional podcasts each and every day, additional video content at advanced tier, fixture planning spreadsheet, Slack community, loads of managers that will definitely be I'm going to call it a nicer place than Twitter will be today, where people are sharing thoughts around last minute moves and transfers. A less noisy, more friendly place to do that. And a whole bunch of other benefits as well. Not only that, just keeps the show going. So patreon.com/Planet FPL. Why not come and support the show? Other than that, as James has said, though, good luck, stay safe. Ciao for now.
Good luck, everyone. Play it your way. Cue music, please. Man child.